Hey copper nerds, let's do a deep dive into the 1794 Sheldon 22 bent lock variety. That's not a very nice one. Let's look at this one instead. Or maybe this one. Let's get into it. So I skipped the Sheldon 22 because this was the only one that I had, but then I picked up this rather nice one from Glenn McCauley, and then I picked this one up as well for the desktop. So now I'm flush with Sheldon 22s, and we should do our deep dive. Ready? Put stuff into their safe positions. And we start off, as always, with the Powers Guide. I actually spoke with Mr. Powers recently. He's seen some of our videos here, and he was glad to see his reference books being used. Just found out he's got a brand new edition coming out, so we'll be previewing that on the channel at some point with a nice overview. I'm really interested in seeing what upgrades Mr. Powers has made. One of my favorite things about these guides is the die break maps, which I've showed off often. But again, sort of a basic attribution guide reference with great photos, and I find it handy myself. So, looking at the 22, I've already said it's the bent lock variety. Let's look at a bent lock. So that's your easy diagnostic there on the obverse. Sometimes you're going to get a crack right there. Reverse numerator touches the fraction bar, bam, and the second 0 in 100 is notably high. I concur, Mr. Powers. Thank you. What should we look at next? Breen is what we usually look at next. Breen's Encyclopedia, which was done with Del Bland and edited by Mark Borchardt, who is a wonderful fella who we encounter often. He's over at Heritage. Sheldon 22, here it is. Here it is. 6th lock bent down. Bam. And spread leaves, oh yeah, mounds reverse. So, one thing I should note is that my nice example, which is rather nice, you'll see pictures if you haven't already. Oh, as I throw it. You'll see pictures if you haven't already. Oh, as I throw it. Does not have the mounds reverse. Yeah, you know, if you buy a coin from my collection, it's been handled real carefully. Does not have the mounds on the reverse. This is an earlier die state example. Does have some wild planchet stuff going on and a beautiful portrait, and I love this coin. And I won't tell you what I paid for it because I think I got way too good of a deal on it. Way too good of a deal. It's a beautiful example. Okay. A little bit about die states here in Breen, which we're going to get at in Heck's book, so I skip over that. Condition, census examples. Lots of them in AU55, AU50. The lowest listed is an extra fine 45. So these are plentiful in high grades. And to confirm that, let's take a look at the noise book. Sheldon 22. 21, 22. Okay, bent locks, or bent lock. Mounds above 1 in 1 cent, usually. Except not on that one. Okay. The bent hair lock, Liberty, close and evenly spaced. Usually, but not always seen on a large planchet. And that's kind of fun. In fact, here, let's just illustrate that. These usually drop right into the 28 millimeter foam ring. As you can see, that's not the case. I do have to push it into the foam ring using my shirt tail, which is what I do rather than touching the obverse or reverse of my coins when I'm putting them in capsules. I use my shirt tail. Yeah, so usually about 1 millimeter oversized planchet. Got a good size loop at the lower left corner of the bust. So that's right there. Pro tip, if you don't see the loop, if it's just straight, then it is a short bust. Let's look at like the 51, yeah. That would be a short bust. What other ones are? I think 49 might be. Yeah. No loop, short bust. Okay. So it has got a prominent loop on this one. Nine locks of hair with the tip of the sixth one from the bottom bent sharply downwards. That is diagnostic. That's why it's called the bent lock obverse. Which is a single-use obverse and single-use reverse. So this is a fun one because you're only getting to see either the obverse or reverse on this very one variety. There's no carryover from one to the next. Okay, as for our reverse, the mounded reverse, let's look at some mounds. The reverse is usually, but not always, seen with the badly sunken die producing the mounds. Keep in mind, anything that happens on the surface of the die, the opposite is seen on the coin. I've had these sitting on the corner of my desk for a while. So let's, this is an old Chuck Heck trick. We're gonna look at Chuck's book next. I'm not gonna eat this chocolate. It is old. And I've had it sitting on my desk, just waiting for the right opportunity. Eek. Right there. Okay, so we are assuming that this is the die, right? It's got the reverse impression of the coin. And then if I were to take like this pen and I'm going to sink that into the die, right? So we've got a sunken portion of the die now, which is raised on the opposite side. So if the die were starting to sink, well, it was hammering this way, of course, but die sinks and then strikes a coin, it's gonna have a hump on it. That's the mounds on the reverse that we were just looking at. There we go, that was fun. I've been waiting to use those little foil coins and that was a good opportunity. Okay, our die states perfect and perfect, which is I think what mine is. Little crack there, and then we start seeing the mounds coming up there in state C. Looks like C is the latest that they're showing here, but yeah, very clearly sunken right there. And to get the rest of the story, after we look at our condition census examples, we'll check out Chuck Heck's Die States book. All right, what's our finest known? Some AU55s across the top row. Ooh, that center one's got a pretty neat crack there going up through the neck. That's neat. All right, we've got some missing photos down below. Picking up with some more really nice coins. Gosh, down at the 12th finest, we're at an XF40. Noise usually grades about 5 points more strict than most other EAC graders. So oftentimes there will be like a 5-point disparity between what you see in noise and what you see in brain. Okay, let's take a close look at those die states. Heck's book is in emission sequence. Hi, Chuck. And 22, page 43. Can you hear my neighbor mowing? Maybe the background music will drown that out. I'm just sitting here talking to myself, listening to my neighbor mow his lawn. The pre-production stuff that I do here is always kind of weird, and then somehow it all comes out after editing. Okay, Sheldon 22. All right. Maris, or Maris, someone tell me how to pronounce it, calls it the large planchet variety, but of course we call it the mounds reverse and the bent lock, at least I do. It's a lot easier to see that and, well, sometimes mounds than it is to see 1 millimeter of extra planchet. Okay, starts out perfect. And then the reverse, okay, spalling. We start seeing some spalling up in here. Which I think eventually becomes our mounds. So Chuck talks to us a little bit about spalling, which appears as roughness. That's like, you know, sort of granular appearance on the die face from the die crumbling away. These dies had some very inconsistent heat treat, but also just uniformity of the steel that was used was you know, not very uniform. Okay, so we're seeing some spalling. Die state 3, obverse. Clash marks. Oh yeah, those little clash marks. That's probably the easiest one to see there. Let's see, the ribbon clashes. Some leaves clash. All right, and then the reverse. Now we see the raised mound. See it, where the number 1's pointing? That's the mound. All right. Not a lot of change on the die state 4 obverse, and then on the reverse, 2 additional mounds. Oh, I've never really paid attention to the mounds there and there. I'm usually just looking at the big one above 1. That's cool. All right, die state 5, more clashes. This is a really common clash, you guys. Seeing leaves sort of right above Liberty's hair, super common. You see it on a bunch of varieties. And then we get our die crack through the 4. And we do see a lot of cracks down through the numbers in various varieties. All right, on the reverse, clash marks, more stuff about clash marks. Flow lines are picking up. We don't see a lot of flow lines in 1794s like you do in other varieties that typically struck a lot more coins. Since 1794 dies didn't last that long, typically. You see a lot more flow mark and die degradation in later dates where the dies lasted longer and had more strikes and more opportunity for that type of die wear. 1794 seemed to just kind of catastrophically fail more often than not. Some more die clashes. Isn't that cool? I do like those clashes above the hair. Sort of a nice 1794 Easter egg diagnostic that you can always be looking for. Yeah, gosh, that die just looks rough. I bet he's going to talk a lot about just die wear. We're reading together, so let's take a look. Clash marks, clash marks, clash marks. Flow lines in the field have now etched into the die on high-grade specimens. Yeah, those flow lines are cool. Just wearing out those dies. I like it. Do we get any more? We do. 2 more pages. Okay, so there's our big 3 mounds on the reverse in die state 6. Getting into die state 7, flow lines are prominent. A lot of flow lines, both on the obverse and the reverse. Hopefully I can find some good photos of those to zoom in on for you guys. I never know what I'm going to get, but I usually go with just the PCGS photos and see what they have available. But hopefully there's some late die state stuff in there. Okay. Sheldon. Sheldon. That's got to be Sheldon or Seldom. Sheldon. We're going to go Sheldon. Sheldon named this obverse for this variety the bent lock for the sharp downward bend at the end of the 6th lock in Miss Liberty's hair, which, hold the edge on my sweaty hand here, doesn't focus that well. Let's get low. Yeah, I can see that bent lock even through your screen there. Can you see it? Can you see that? Regardless, we'll zoom in for some better pictures. Okay, well, I was glad to be able to circle back to this one. It's a variety that I really like, did not have a very good example of, so we skipped it. And then I was excited to pick up this one and then fell into this one like a day or two later. But again, I love this variety, although I do like the late dye state, but I could not pass up the deal I got on this one. Such a beautiful portrait. I love planchet flaws anyway, so I could live with the lack of mounds. But thanks for checking this one out, y'all. Deep dives are fun, aren't they? I think we're gonna be catching back up to, should be Sheldon 29. I don't have one. Should be 30. I don't have one. Should be 31. Mine's super ugly. 32 is probably the next one we're gonna do, even though I sold the nicer of my two 32s. So yeah, we're hitting this area where I have some fun gaps. I don't have a 33. I don't have a 34. I do have a 35. I might be going all the way to 35, but we shall see. Thanks for checking this one out. Hit me up in the comments. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.